Year festival. There I was. And I was just thinking, like, we can't just let this Bengali thing happen. We have to involve the people from other languages or other heritages. So we had a session for poetry. Obviously, I went to Stephen and I said, Stephen, who else that we can ask to come and join us, read their poems? And of course, this is how I was introduced to David. So David came in. It was Brady Center. One of those busy days, people were eating from one side, smell of rice and curry coming out. And over here, it's very chaotic. There are some books people are desperate to sell. And on the other side, it's like continuously some kind of singing is going around. It's all very chaotic. But the moment David came to the stage, his powerful voice and his words, my goodness, everything stopped. They just whispered, Shamim, who is he? He said, he's a very important poet. And then it was lovely. After that event, following 2 years, whenever I asked David, he used to come and participate with great importance. And he used to show his interest about the Bengali poets. And this is how he got to know me. I was only trying to write it in my second language, which is English. I just started writing then. And I would say that from those festivals, having food together, having few friends together, I became David's friend. So when David was unwell, sometimes he used to call me. I'm right in the middle of something, children were, boisterous. And you said, Shamim, what are you cooking? I said, what else? And then he would say where he is. And I was working in Stepney Green and a Stepford Community Center. Once I visited him, he gave his books. I've got 2 books, I'm so lucky. I loved his words. I loved his company. I actually remember those times that when this East End kind of welcomed me as a Bengali poet, as a Bricklane poet, into the poetry community. I'm so grateful to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamim. That was great. It's great to hear these memories. It doesn't have to be a poem. If someone wants to say something, please get in touch with me. Mike, have you sorted that line out? You were looking for something earlier? I can move on to someone else. But
if you want to hear it, we've got it, yeah?
Yeah, you were gonna, yeah, great. Yeah, great. Mike Parson.
Okay. This is from Wordsworth's 1805 Prelude. O pleasant exercise of hope and joy, for great were the auxiliars which then stood upon our side, we who were strong in love. Bliss it was in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven. O times in which the meagre, stale, forbidding ways of custom, law and statute took at once the attraction of a country in romance, when reason seemed the most to assert her rights, when most intent on making of itself a prime enchanter to assist the work which then was going forwards in her name. That's William Wordsworth.
Thanks, Mike. Right. Well, next up, John Stiles, my fellow marooned Canadian of many years on this island.
Would just like to say a couple of things about these two guys. When I first moved here, when I first moved here to London, I didn't know anybody really, and I was at an event, and this man and this man in the very front were sat together at a place in Soho called Coffee, Cake and Kink, and I was making a racket there and about something, and I saw kind of the table inch forward and a book be passed across the table, and it was some of the collected works of David Kessel and another person, I believe, by the name of Howard Mingham. Years later, now I can't say that I was ever close friends with David Kessel, but of course I did become close friends with Nick, who's in the front here. And in a way that I know that my friendship with Nick, and I hope he's not embarrassed to hear this, but I feel that he had a close kinship with David in the same way. And so years later, as we crossed paths many times at Kingsley Hall, and you got to know some of the other poets within the community and the other performers and so forth, including Mike and Paul, and there's many here. 20 years later, David passed this book, probably 15 years later, he passed this book to me, and he wrote in it an inscription. So I have his work and I have his actual signature here. From 2013 it is to John, now I can't read it, he must have been a doctor.
Yes. Good.
But it's, I know that that moment he was talking about another poet, and to me that's exactly what the spirit of him was. I don't think, I do have his books, I have The Ivy, I have a couple of other of his books, I think the Survivor one as well. And years later when I was, around the house, I was reading through it, and he was a dynamite young poet, and I didn't realize he'd been to Hastings with Mr. Parsons on a trip as well. So I think that's in one of the poems. So you realize the dynamism of this young sage, basically. Now I'm waffling on here, and I'm going on and on a bit, but David Amery, I was always a bit nervous about, talking about my stuff, most of it's set in Canada, some of it's set in London. One of the things I was writing about was set in London, and I read it at Kingsley Hall. And to make a long story short, I was waffling on, and by the end of it I was like, I don't know how good that was. And David Amery came up to me, and he said, you're a writer. And I said, how do you know? Oh, he said, I know. Because you talked about the dog that went to the bathroom on the bus, and you talked about the fact that the dog had basically done his business, but it was ended up in 3 separate pieces. And this detail, I hope you find that funny, this detail and this incisive mind was somebody that I was aware of in terms of this is a kind of brilliant person that I am aware of, and he keeps me on my toes as a writer, but also makes me interested in what he's got to say. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. So I started doing this just to pass the time, deal with some things after the pandemic. So this is kind of, I won't go on and on, but it's called the On and On song. And it's a little bit about when things don't necessarily go right. I worked in education, maybe some of you worked in that field. And I loved the kids. I didn't always get along with the other teachers. I'm not a naughty person, a little bit. You start your day, you have your say, it goes on and 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 on. They dock your pay. I've no say. When it's done, you'll be gone. Are you the type to say your prayers in the morning? Are you the type to say your prayers all alone? These are the days when the back bit back. These are the days of the panic attack. This is for David and David. Don't have to worry, we'll pull through. Don't have to worry, we'll pull through. Don't have to worry, we'll pull through. Okay, I'm not going to solo it. Thank you, David and David.
Right on, that was great. Thanks. You know, when you were pulling out the guitar just at the end though, I was just thinking, damn it, I didn't tell Dave Russell, you know, that's his name, yeah, Dave Russell.
Yeah.
Ah, Jesus. Anyway, if anyone sees him, tell him about the event. You know, he was a regular at some of the events. He knew both of them. Okay, I have someone here. Apologies if this person is here and I didn't make myself known to them, but I have someone here called Wendy Young. Is Wendy Young here by chance?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on then. Nick Waller, would you like to? Did you want to?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Seriously, fine. Thank you.
Have I left anyone out? Great. Please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Hi, my name's Alex. I had a very strange relationship with David, to I think how most of you would have known him. David was simultaneously my idol, my hero, my best friend, and my dad at the same time. I met David when I was 3 in a place called Field Lane, where single mothers and their children could go there and they would take care of the children after school so mothers could work and not have to pay for their childcare. And when they were closing Field Lane and I found out I wasn't going to see David anymore, I was inconsolable. I couldn't live. And he promised to see me every Wednesday. And I saw David every Wednesday till the day he died. Unless either one of us was out of the country. So David, sorry sir. So as I say, David was my everything, and those who were at the funeral know I opened it by saying, when I was young, when I grew up, all I wanted to be was David. I'm going to read, he wrote a poem called Transformer Baby, which was, bear with me. And there's the transformer. So Nick did something very mean to me today, and she told me I could have the transformer, and I almost died. Transformers were my favourite thing when I was a child. Transformers and Ghostbusters, and he wrote a poem for me that I found very comforting at times in my life. I won't read the whole of it because it's quite long, but I'll read a section at the end which is a bit softer than most of David's poems, but it's the bit that I always remembered. So it's titled, "To a Sleeping Boy Against Bad Dreams." How beautiful it is to see the world through eyes of one who is not yet born. And your eyes are still like the hooded visors of a monster capital in heavy disguise. Baby Transformer, little Ghostbuster, keep your mind free of that dream master, whose acetate fingers would slice through your dreams and gobble you up like chocolate ice cream. Sweet anorexic, splintered apart, spew the invader out of your heart. The anorexic is quite clearly, there was some reference there. Some spoke of David's work in mental health, and I know that a lot of people have spoken about how his poetry will ring through people forever. I've spent my entire career working with the homeless and with supported housing and trying to be half the person that David God gave me the example to be. And I'm now spending my career bringing young people, like my nephew over there, into the same field. And I tell them, it's because of David. David was the greatest man I ever knew. And I'm so sorry. David was the greatest man I ever knew. And I have made it my mission to try and live up to the example he gave me of how to be a man. I will constantly say I fail, and I'm proud to do so, because I don't think anyone can ever match what he was. And that's outside of his poetry. It's the human being he was. Thank you.